This is the Northwest Geographic Area Coordination Center, Predictive Services, Spring and Early Summer of 2015, Climate and Significant Fire Potential Outlook, updated on Thursday, April 2nd, 2015. First, let's verify temperature and precipitation outlooks valid for March of 2015. The left frame shows the Climate Prediction Center temperature outlook for March of 2015 that was issued at the end of February, and it shows broad areas across the western states of a likelihood of above average temperatures for March as a whole. The strongest tendency for above average temperatures was estimated to be in California and sections of Oregon and Nevada. The right frame shows the temperatures actually observed in March of 2015 as a departure from normal temperatures in March. And as we can see, this was a good forecast verification. Unusually warm temperatures were observed across much of California, Nevada, and sections of Oregon. Just about all the western states observed temperatures above average in March of 2015. Again, this looks like a good forecast verification for the month as a whole. The precipitation outlook for March of 2015, the left frame shows the forecasted precipitation likelihoods for March as a whole, issued at the end of February, and it shows above average likelihoods in the Four Corners region of the desert southwest for precipitation, and best likelihood of below average precipitation in the western part of Oregon and Washington and northern California as well. The right frame shows precipitation actually observed for March of 2015 as a whole, and it's not that good a verification, as we saw above average precipitation in sections of western Washington and in the northern Rockies, and a little bit below average precipitation for sections of Oregon, and continuing well below average for California in March. So not quite as good a verification as is usually the case for precipitation for the month as a whole. Let's summarize temperatures and precipitations across the western states observed since January 1st of 2015. The left frame shows temperatures observed for the 3-month period, January, February, and March. And as we can see, for the western states, just about every reporting zone has temperatures at or well above average for the 3-month period as a whole. In some climate reporting zones, it looks like it's going to be the warmest winter in history for sections of the western states since record keeping began in 1895. The right frame shows precipitation as a percentage of normal, again for the same 3-month period, January, February, and March of 2015. As we can see, we continue to see record dryness across California and Nevada into Utah and sections of Idaho, with dry conditions across much of Oregon as well, and much of Washington, with some exceptions in northeast Washington and northwest Washington. Overall, to characterize precipitation for the western states, it's been well below average, with some exceptions in the Pacific Northwest, where individual station tallies are showing deficits, but not severe deficits in many areas. Now, the combination of relatively low precipitation and unusually warm temperatures for the winter of 2014-2015 has resulted, and as you might guess, in unusually low snowpack observed across California and Oregon and Washington. The SNOTEL reporting sites percentage of normal for snow water equivalent, updated as of April 1st, 2015, shows a dismal state for our snow reporting stations across all of Oregon and much of Washington as well. The only stations which have accumulated anything near normal have been up along the Canadian border in sections of northeast Oregon, southeast Washington. But by and large, the snow is unusually low across the western states, including California, which looks like it's going to set a record for record low snowpack for the 2014-2015 season. Oregon and Washington not far behind that. It does appear that some of the snow totals are just as dismal as they were during the 1976-77 drought year as well. The U.S. Drought Monitor, issued as of March 31st, 2015, continues to show areas of exceptional to severe drought expanding northward from California into the Great Basin in Nevada, and including southeast Oregon as well, with lesser amounts of drought designation east of the Cascades in Oregon and Washington as well. So let's look at 1,000-hour fuel moistures for just a smattering of our reporting predictive service areas. The upper left frame shows Northwest 1. This is western Washington, 1,000-hour fuel moisture values since the first of the year. And as we can see, the last 2 weeks of March have been generous in terms of precipitation and fuel moistening across western Washington. So we see 1,000-hour fuel moisture values have been climbing in response to the cool, wet weather. The upper right frame shows the 1,000-hour fuel moisture values for northeast Washington, PSA Northwest 09. And over the past couple of weeks, we've seen a general climb in 1,000-hour fuel moisture values owing to the cooler, wetter weather that has shaped up. Lower left frame shows southwest Oregon 1,000-hour fuel moisture values, and not as much precipitation or cool conditions observed down there. So while 1,000-hour fuel moisture values have climbed since early March, they've been beginning to decrease again as well. It looks like they may be on track for an arrival on May 1st at somewhere less than average if the current weather patterns continue. And the right frame shows the 1,000-hour fuel moisture trace for southeast Oregon, PSA NW12, and that's showing a little response to the cool, wet weather that we've observed across much of the geographic area through the last half of March and into April. And it appears at this point that 1,000-hour fuel moisture values in southeast Oregon are on track to arrive at May 1st, something near normal values. About the status of El Nino, the latest El Nino advisory has not been issued for April, so I'm going with the March 5th El Nino advisory, and that shows that a very weak El Nino is in place at this point, according to the Climate Diagnostic Center in Washington, D.C. The graphic here shows sea surface temperature anomalies as a departure from normal for this time of year, and we can see a weak El Nino signature in place at this point with a area of above normal water temperatures in the Pacific Ocean near the equator and just centered right around the international date line. We can also see some above average temperatures extending eastward toward the coast of South America as well. It appears this is not a classic El Nino pattern with an isolated bulge of above average temperatures isolated out near the international date line. Further research has shown that this is not a classic El Nino. It bears the signature of a specialized El Nino pattern called a Modoki El Nino, which does not include a stream of warm temperatures all the way across the Pacific Ocean. In summary, the Climate Diagnostic Center says that there's approximately a 50 to 60% chance that the El Nino conditions, or the weak El Nino conditions that we see, will continue through the Northern Hemisphere summer of 2015. Due to the expected weak strength, widespread significant global impacts are not anticipated from this weak El Nino. Again, this is from the March 5th, 2015 El Nino diagnostic discussion. It should be noted that temperature and precipitation patterns for Oregon and Washington are not significantly affected by El Nino in either case, especially during weak El Ninos in summertime months. About the outlook for the coming months, this is the outlook from the Climate Prediction Center for April of 2015. Left frame shows forecasted temperature likelihoods, and Climate Prediction Center is backing off significantly the likelihood of above average temperatures for much of the western states for April. It's more even money, with just a swath of small potential for above average temperatures along the coast of Oregon and Washington, extending into California. The right frame shows forecasted precipitation likelihoods for April as a whole, and it appears that the forecasters at the Climate Prediction Center have no reliable tools to make any kinds of outlooks for the month as a whole for April, based upon the history and the observational and forecast tools that they have. There's no trend forecasted, so the best we could hope for is something near normal or equal chances for normal amounts of precipitation through April. My own look at forecasts through the first 10 days of April or so indicate that that's a likely bet, is that we have left the unusual warm and dry pattern that we saw earlier this year, and it looks like, to me, at least for the first half of April, that the conditions will be something closer to average with cooler temperatures and greater precipitation. For May, June, and July, the seasonal temperature and precipitation outlook, the left frame shows forecasted temperature likelihoods. Climate Prediction Center forecasters are still confident, however, for the 3-month period, May, June, and July, that we're going to see unusually warm temperatures as the best bet in the far western states right through the first half of summer. The left frame shows forecasted precipitation likelihoods, a little bit less sureness on this, but still indicating probable below average precipitation for western Oregon and western Washington for that 3-month period through July of 2015. Not a strong likelihood at this case. One thing forecasters have been more consistent with for the May, June, and July forecast is the strong likelihood of above average precipitation for the desert southwest extending into the central Rockies. And this is a pattern that we saw similar to last year, and it may portend a greater than typical potential for thunderstorms across Oregon and Washington if that moisture moves further northwards as we get into July and August of 2015. So the significant fire potential outlook for April and including May as well of 2015 is the summary is that the Northwest geographic area remains out of fire season during April and May. Conditions historically in April and May are just too wet and cool to support much risk of large, costly wildland fires in the Pacific Northwest. Our look at the fire history of the last 20 years across Oregon and Washington shows extremely low potential for significant fires in April and May, owing to the cool and wet conditions that we typically observe. Even during dry spells in April and May, the Northwest geographic area is not susceptible to large wildland fires, particularly naturally ignited wildland fires. As we get into May, there is some increasing potential for significant fires creeping up in sections in California, however not in Oregon and Washington. And it is not until June or July does the risk of unusually large, costly fires really begin to expand northwards from California into Oregon and Washington as we move into June and July. Owing to the low snowpack and the generally dry conditions that we've seen across the area, we anticipate that receptivity to lightning starts will begin earlier in June than typical across much of Oregon and Washington. Therefore, we're judging that the potential for a busier season and a longer lasting season is elevating over Oregon and Washington. This is primarily based upon the low snowpack that we have seen plaguing the area through the winter of 2014 and 2015. Again, we'd like to reemphasize that the most important consideration in fire season forecasting is the likelihood of concentrated lightning outbreaks rather than the climate in the seasons preceding the fire season. Concentrated lightning outbreaks give us lots of ignitions in a short period of time, and typically the drier conditions that we see during the summer indicate that that's the potential for large, costly wildland fires as a result of lightning outbreaks. And at this point we don't have any reliable tools to forecast lightning long range. One note, due to poor snowpack and at higher elevations and generally dry conditions since the first of the year, NWCC Predictive Services is urging fire management units to use precaution during prescribed burns, particularly if windy weather is anticipated as we go through burning season. The next outlook will be issued on May 4th of 2015.